Ta-da! Hello, hello, universe. Um, we're going to talk today, I hope, a little bit about, excuse me, some of the history of equitation and a little bit why riding is being done the way riding is being done. Um, I'm obviously Craig Stevens because it says so there, and that's obviously Megan Sorrentino over there. So we're going to both annoy each other a little bit and try to figure out how to tell y'all a story about how where equitation came from and how it works. So anything you want to say in the hi, how are you department, Meg?
No. Hi, universe. I'm going to try not to let Craig rant too much.
Okay, it's my rant pauser. Megan's going to be so when I get ranting, she'll like stick a hand up and let me know or swat me on the nose. Anyhow, when you first encounter the horse world and you've been in the horse world a while, there's a certain, I don't know that the word ambiance is quite the right word, but there's a certain environment that's fairly typical. If you go around any given area, that you'll find that there's a commonality with what we would call modern dressage or what we might call equitation or training. And it's actually whether or not it's English riding, Western riding, side saddle driving, the principles of equitation are universal, regardless. And if we have get an understanding of the history, we can understand why going in a certain direction may be useful or not so useful. And so if we consider the early history of riding and we start in the beginning, the domestication of the horse is generally cited to be around 4,000 to as close to as 2,500 BC, depending on what expert you check out. Either way, it's what we would call pre-written history. So it's not like, well, I can read that book on what was done with the horse from, 3,000 BC. So the transmission or the way to handle horses in that period of time was transmitted from family to family to tribe, nothing written, all based on feel. It's what you would call an empirical way of working with horses, basically trial and error.
And these horses were domesticated likely first for not riding purposes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The early, no, I mean, in a weird way, you think about it, it's like there's a horse out there, you've never seen anybody ride, you don't know anything about riding. So you think, oh, gee, what a good idea to get on top of that animal. That might not be such a good idea. Not in the beginning, anyway. So through domestication in the first stages, the early stages of domestication, there was a methodology that was in use that was not written about, but was transmitted through experience. Right? That early work we call Mediterranean work. Mediterranean work, if you go and Google it, probably will lead pretty much to me, only because it's not a system has been written about, but orally transmitted. And some of the reason that it's difficult to understand is because the emphasis is not on making horses do something, but on harmonizing with horses. And this is the foundations of the beginning of what becomes eventually early dressage. And dressage is just a word for training. And that carries itself up into northern Italy. So the kind of Mediterranean horsemanship that I'm talking about, which is pre-written literature, appears in the heart of the Mediterranean basin and is basically a composite of all the kinds of horsemanship that were alive at various times throughout history, starts in Sicily and progresses northward up into Italy. And from there, it progresses into France and eventually into German. So into Germany or into the Germanic countries further north. So there's this kind of flow of technical knowledge, one might say, over the centuries. Okay. And that's the beginning, the foundation and the beginning of equitation. The primary impulse, or one of the primary impulses, was military riding, and the other was aesthetic riding. Now, when I say to you aesthetic riding, what I'm meaning is that riding was seen as a way of a nobleman enhancing his status and his nobility. So those who rode with a tremendous amount of skill were highly admired. So there was a status aspect and also the capability of fighting. So the heyday of that kind of aesthetic riding, as we fantasize maybe, is the School of Versailles, which is the later part of the 18th century. Okay, the School of Versailles becomes extinct with the French Revolution. So the French Revolution becomes a place where there's a break between aesthetic riding and the need to have military riding. Now, it's complicated in a weird way to explain the history because it's not just one thing, but it's a composite influence on the body of the education of the rider and the horse.
That was going to be my question. How did the education of the nobleman vary from the military education?
Well, initially, not really. Okay, but when we got into the point where there was a separation, as in the French Revolution, it becomes very dramatic. The military riding was basically based, the fundamental idea behind military riding, always military anything, is a skill of an idiot teaching an idiot to do something. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. In other words, that the skill is not brilliant. It's something that you can repeat. I mean, the advantage of having a gun is that if you follow the same procedure, you get the same result. The disadvantage of a horse is that when the animal is not trained, you don't know what the hell the result you're going to get. And so you try, yeah, go ahead.
Is it fair to say that the horses that were trained in the noble way were respected a lot more than the horses that were in the military?
They were used, yes. I mean, there's no trade. The difference is between maybe between a Volkswagen and a Ferrari. The noble horses are like Ferraris. I mean, the noble horse, the properly trained horse, the horse's body is an extension of your mind, and your mind is an extension of the horse's body. Okay, and this is one of the ways, the differences between the military riding and the superior kind of riding. I call it superior anyway. This idea of the merging of the body and the mind of the horse. The average rider, all right, could not do that. Was not interested in that. What they wanted the horse to do is to be like the family car.
Well, I was just about to say, I really liked your metaphor of a Ferrari versus a Volkswagen.
Yeah. You know,
it's
like
really fun to drive a Ferrari, but you might not want to do it the first time you drive.
And when you go down to get groceries, give me a break, you know. And what you want with a car is you want the car that when you start it, you turn the key, it starts. When you turn right, it turns right. Unlike a horse, where when you think you turn right, it might go left. You know, and you don't want to fight your family car on the way to the store. You simply wanted to go to the store. It's simple. on, off, left, right. The military riding, or the way of thinking about the military riding from a soldier's point of view in the late 19th century, before the car was really invented, all right, where most everybody was doing horses, was there's these different schools of riding. So you had military riding. Why? Because that only went so far. Military riding was like, you do action A, horse does B. You do C, horse does D. And it's bump, bump, bump. The artistic riding is not broad and general, it's very specific. You put the foot down here, it goes down here. You can make it dance, you can make it's a funny word. Because one of the things and one of the key ideas in the military horse is basically attention, soldier, you must obey. All right. All right. So that puts you, the rider or trainer, into the position of creating behavior. You're going to make the horse do things. This is actually by far the most common way riding is taught. And the motivation they use to make the horse do it is because they scare the horse. Basically, they use fear. Okay, so clever horse after a while figures out how to survive. The horse adapts to the human. If you want a higher level of riding, to enter the artistic realm, the first thing is that you and the horse suffer from the same problem. Both of you think you're the center of the universe. The only difference in your mind from the horse's view and your view is the horse is wrong. The horse in the beginning thinks the same thing of you.
Well, and they're probably right, because they know how to be a horse better than we do. We've been walking around on 2 legs our whole lives.
Right.
Horses walking around on 4 legs their whole life.
Right. So the beginning principle, all right, is harmony, not opposition. So in other words, we'll say the horse is going on a straight line between point A and B. Okay, I want the horse to go in a straight line. The horse starts going off to the side. Okay, all right. You don't block the horse from going to the side until you harmonize with the horse's motion and then lead the horse in the new direction. And what I mean by that is if you look at the way a horse progresses, it moves, all right, one side pushes, then the other. And so it's pushing in a tempo. So when you want the horse to go more one way than the other, you just accentuate that tempo.
Yeah, one of the things I tell my students all the time is a horse is different than anything else you steer in your life because it walks.
Yeah.
So you have to follow the rhythm of the walk, even when it's not working, unlike driving a car or even riding a bicycle.
Right. Right. We have very strong reflexes when it's not going the way we want to grab and make it. And when you do that with a horse, the horse knows you're going to eat it for lunch. It freaks out. I mean, it's not, depending on how green the horse is, you know.
Well, you can get it to work that way, but you're only going to get to a certain level getting it to work that way. Well,
and you can battle the horse to get control. There's nobody, I mean, if nothing else, the horse war proves that you can make it something work like that. All right. But the difference from the point of view of the rider, when the horse is wanting to do it and you're dancing together, is so big time worth, whatever you have to go through to figure out how to get there. The opposition, after a while, you roll your eyes, you think, God, geez, I like a day went out to fight.
Yeah. In
the beginning, of course, when you have what I would call a good common instructor, normal everyday instructor, you are taught that the fighting is normal, that's how you ride. Riding is a series of skirmishes that result in the horse going in the direction you want. Okay. Whereas I think it's inherently worthwhile for you to think about riding as a dance, a harmonious dance that you're doing. And this is why, like when we do a lot of the early work and I know you know this. This is why I put people on the lunge, or I put a lunge line on, so that I get the horse to work in hand, so they don't have to use their body, so they can figure out how their body can dance with a horse. Everybody can do it.
Well, not only is it worthy for the rider, but it's worthy for the horses.
Oh, it's
They
a
last
win-win.
longer and they are herd animals. They don't want to fight.
Yeah.
They don't fight very often in their herds. And when they do, it's small and it's short.
Yeah.
That their normal state of mind is to have peace.
Yeah.
And with the artistic kind of riding, they can experience peace in the riding versus a battle.
Yeah. So it's hard to, when I say it's hard to sell the other point of view, we all came from the other point of view. But after working a lot of horses, you know, I can say to you, in all my years of training, how many times I've rolled my eyes privately and thought to myself, God, there's got to be a better way, you know, and God, there's got to be a better way. Boy, can't we figure out a better way of doing it? And the answer is there is a better way. We don't have to reinvent it, but we have to learn to see beyond what we've been taught.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been taught to manipulate and control the horse's body.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, good idea. You
Well,
know,
what I experienced working that way is I could only get my horses to a certain level unless I wanted to buy a really expensive horse.
exactly. And even
And
then, yeah,
I always thought there has to be a different way. And then the first time I heard you talk, I thought, oh my gosh, why don't more people know about this?
right. And me too, actually, because I mean, and I've had very good instruction, but how much in essence, my belief is that how to ride is beyond words.
Yeah.
And you have to get enough experience to figure it out. And I think because it's ineffable means beyond words, that you can't put words to it. There's this constant seeking for the feeling. And you can't, when I say to you, you can't get there by opposition. The reason you can't get there is because opposition never listens.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you can come together with a horse is for the two of you to become friends. And what I would say to you as a rider and as a horse owner, why don't you want to be friends with your horse? Doesn't it make more sense, even if it takes more time, or whatever the time it takes, to cultivate a relationship that's based on harmony and friendship? And that's what I hope we'll be able to share with you, and to some degree, even though it's ineffable, we can't come up with exactly the right words, but maybe we can get you to think about the problem in a little bit of a different way and approach the problem in a slightly different way. And I don't think there's any particular magic to it other than trying to engage in a practice of kindness. And I'm not going to tell you everything that can be done with that.
I think that's a good stopping point.
Yeah, it is a good stopping point. 500 hours of secret riding stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. In the real world, this is at least the beginning.
Yes.
Anything I missed, Megan?
No, I think that's a good start to explain the difference and why we work the way we do. We're lucky that we live in a time where horses aren't a necessity, that they can be an added joy to our life, and we can choose the friendship route versus the transportation military route.
Right. And as we go along, we'll explain the minutia that's involved in it. This is not a short process, but what I would suggest to you, that sooner or later it will be a necessary process. All right. And sooner is always better from the horse's point of view. So the sooner you learn how to become the horse's best friend, the better for both of you. So
Yeah.
on that charming note, I think we're gonna bid adieu to everybody, and hopefully this won't bore the hell out of you.
That's the
Bye,
goal.
Laura.